Hello, it's lovely to be standing up here. You may have seen me in Blaze before, but you've never seen me standing up here before. And when Joe asked me if I would do this, I have to admit that my instant and internal reaction was, no way, I can't do that, that's far too scary. Thankfully, Joe said I could give it some consideration, but I also have to admit that there was something in here that was saying, yes, Wendy, that's for you. So here I am. And I'm sharing that with you today because it's an illustration of how I think David might have reacted and how he might have been when God called him. So today we're considering the circumstances of God's call on David and how he might have felt about it and the reactions of those involved. The story is first told in Samuel, the first book of Samuel in the Old Testament. And we are going to watch now the video, the story of that. Please watch carefully because we're going to act out a little portion of it in a moment. So, run the video and
Fishnet
enjoy.
Bible Stories proudly presents Samuel Anoints David. Saul was king of Israel, but he became proud and his heart was cold. Samuel was sad that Saul disobeyed God, but God would choose another man whose love for him was bold. The last time Samuel spoke to Saul, he warned him how he brought God shame.
Obedience is better than sacrifice. Another man will take over your reign.
God told Samuel to make a journey to the house of Jesse of Bethlehem. The new king would come from this family, a son of Jesse, a godly man. Samuel knocked on Jesse's door. His 7 sons appeared very gallant. Samuel took a look at all the men. Each one had a special talent. But God spoke to Samuel.
Don't look at appearance or height.
Then Samuel asked Jesse if he had any other sons. None of these men had a heart that was right. Jesse said,
There is another, but he's the youngest and tending the sheep.
Bring him to me.
Samuel replied.
It is the youngest son I need to meet.
Samuel's eyes were opened. David was the one that God had chosen. Samuel anointed David and poured oil over his head. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully on David. Someday a crown would rest on his head. Thanks for watching. Please like and comment and click subscribe.
Thank you. Okay, so next slide, please. That's the one. Okay, so we're going to act out a small part of it. So the first, what I could do, I could illustrate the point even more by saying, I'll have you, and you, and you, and you. But at the risk of terrifying a few people, I'm not going to do that. I will do volunteers today. So each time Samuel saw a brother, he thought, surely this is the one on account of his height or his looks or his strength. But God said to him, no, not that one. And it was in almost exasperation that Samuel asks if Jesse has any other sons. And almost apologetically, Jesse says that he has one last son. But he's the youngest and out in the field. But he's brought into Samuel, who hears from God that he is the one, and he is the one that is anointed. So, thank you to all of your wonderful acting. While I'm talking for the rest of the slides, on your tables you'll find some paper, some pencils, some crayons, and there is a little template of a person, or there is some plain paper. And on that, I would like you to B. Fantastic. I would like you to be drawing and colouring in the things that you enjoy, the things that you feel that you're good at, the things that other people have noticed you do well. Or is it something that you dream of doing? So there's a sheet called What Makes You You. You can do it on the person template, or you can do it on plain paper, and see if you can create with words and pictures and colour what makes you you. What do you enjoy doing? Next slide, please. So what was it about David? Why David? The story tells us that God told Samuel that he was not looking at the height or the strength or the outward appearance like we might do, but God was looking at the heart. Next slide, please. And he actually said to Samuel, "Do not consider his appearance or his height. The Lord does not look at these things, the things that people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." I wonder what that means, looking at the heart. I don't think it means that God is just looking inside of us and seeing our muscle pumping away. What do you think he means? What does it mean that he's looking at our heart? Anybody would like to shout out what they think that means? So he's looking at our heart, probably not the muscle that is pumping away. What do you think he's looking at? Character. That's a great answer. Your character. Anything else? How much we love God. Super answer. One more. Yeah, our values, lovely answer, yes. So he's looking at what makes us us, our values and our character and our personality. I wonder how the other brothers felt, being overlooked, despite their outward appearance, suggested that they might be strong leaders. And how did Jesse respond when Samuel asked him if he had any other sons? I wonder what the impact was for David when his brothers and his family realized that David had been picked and not them. I wonder how that impacted him. But God knew exactly who he wanted. He had looked beyond the things that we see and into the heart of David. David was the youngest and would therefore have had the least life experiences of his brothers. But God had a plan and a purpose for him. Was David a ready-made king? No, he wasn't. But God could see into his heart and knew that David had a character that God could work with. And God was going to teach David things. He was going to skill him up. He was going to equip him and give him everything that he needed to be king. Next slide, please. So what was David's reaction? I wonder if, like when Joe asked me, I wonder whether David had a sort of a knee wobble moment and thought, that's a massive job. Don't think I can be king. That's not for me. I wonder whether from a little boy, I wonder whether he'd had an inclination in his heart. Had he had a feeling that he was destined for something different? But what was his actual reaction when Samuel called him up and said, "You're the one"? What was David's? Although what was, something different might have been going through his head, or he might have been feeling something inside, but what were his actions? Let's watch the second little video clip and have a look.
great prophet.
I told you he couldn't be the one you sought. He's a child. Look again at my eldest, Eliab.
No. The Lord has chosen this one. David, you have been chosen to one day be king of Israel.
I don't think that last brother looked very impressed, did he? So, David, what did we notice about his reactions and his responses? What do you think was going on in his head? What do you think was going on in his tummy and his heart? And what did he actually do? Just take a moment to talk about that on your table just for a minute. What do you notice about his reactions and responses? Would anybody like to share their thoughts? What did we notice about David's response from that video clip? Obviously, this is an interpretation. Pardon? You think he felt unworthy to do the task. So he might have had all sorts of things going on in his head, thinking, gosh, this is such a big task. I'm not sure that I'm up for this, not sure that I'm capable. Certainly he might have had that thought. Any other things that we notice? He could have felt overwhelmed. He certainly could have been feeling overwhelmed. What did he physically and actively do? He was very obedient. Thank you, Lisa. He knelt straight away. He didn't argue with his voice, did he, in this clip anyway? He wasn't sort of shouting back, saying, no, 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 no. He immediately, he knelt and he was obedient and he accepted the calling, even though inside he might have been feeling overwhelmed and anxious and wobbly. So we do wonder what was going on in him from a little boy. And I wonder what you've been drawing and colouring. Would anybody like to share anything that they have been drawing and colouring with us? Maybe in a moment, actually. I might ask you that same question again in just a moment. I was 7 years old when I knew I was going to be a teacher. Was I a ready-made teacher? Well, I did used to sit my poor dad down when he came home from the office and make him do calculations and adding up and taking away. Poor chap. But no, I had to grow up. I had to go to college. I had to practice in a classroom and then use lots of life experiences to be the teacher that I ended up being. But now, looking back, I know that I wasn't meant to be anything else. And it's my belief that God knows us, forms us, makes us, creates us with potential skills, gifts, talents, and desires, because he has a purpose and a plan for us. And I think David's calling teaches us that we just need to be receptive and open and willing and have that heart that that God can use, and a willing heart. And it doesn't matter how anxious or overwhelmed or that we feel at the beginning, he will grow us up, and he will teach us, and he will equip us, and he will give the things that we will need to perform that calling that he has called us to do. So now I'll ask you, so I wonder what adventures God is calling you to. And maybe your drawings and colourings are a clue. Is there anybody who would just be willing to share with us some of the things that they have drawn?